So I've arrived at Portalarium, and the first thing that happened is I saw this guy,
I know, they'll let anybody in this place.
including me.
That's what I meant. Oh,
Oh,
but,
man. Yeah. Okay. So
that's how this is going to go.
So it literally is like a museum in here.
Oh yeah, and well, I am probably the world's biggest pack rat, and so I've kept like every piece of paper, that even all the design documents going back all the way to a Calabeth and before.
Has the Hoarders television show contacted you?
They should, because I've got like 2 barns full of stuff. So
Wow.
yeah, what you see in here is just the stuff that would fit in this office. Hopefully, Portalarium will continue to grow, and we'll bring more out of storage.
We'll have more room for exhibitions.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've put out here though is sort of while there's many people in this office that have had long careers in the games industry, I have the rare honor of having as much gray hair as you do, and
I think we earned it.
And exactly, and so I have a little deeper history than most people.
Mm-hmm.
But so what we put up in here is you're going to see is the preponderance of it is stuff that I've been involved with, but you'll see a few that were not mine. That we've added up also in the museum of people who've had different backgrounds to come here to create Portalarium, and we're proud that we sort of have a mix of about a third of us are old timers who have worked together for many years. About a third of the people in the building are old timers that come from a completely different background, and about a third of the people in the business or in the office are greenhorns, young fresh blood to bring in and come in with quite new ideas. So
that's good.
We think that's a good mix.
Mm-hmm.
But what you'll see around is we'll not only do we sort of have this chronological, going back to the time of paper tape spools.
Oh, this is your teletype stuff.
Done on this teletype. So this is an eBay teletype that I bought, but after the fact, just to kind of showcase what this was. But you'll also notice these blue tags. We have about 30 people in the office. There's about 10 of them here. And that's because 10 people in this building, only a third of the people in the building were born before I wrote my first games. The rest were born. You'll see little tags as we go through.
When did you write your first game? Where am I on this
list? This is 1975.
Okay,
so where are you?
I was
You're
70.
Here too.
I was 70.
You were 70. Wow,
Yeah.
you were already up there, Brady Pete. So you were born in 1905?
No. I mean, I'm born in 1970.
Born in 1970. So yeah, so you were 5 years old.
He's got jokes.
Okay, so then of course shortly after that the Apple II computer came out in the late 70s. This is a Calabeth in its original form, which I originally wrote on a tape player because the floppy disk didn't exist.
Right.
Then just as I was releasing it myself, the floppy disk drive came out. I only sold a few of these, so in fact I used to number them. This is number 12, so I probably sold less than 12.
Wow. I remember my first game that that I had a ColecoVision Atom.
Oh, excellent!
And we used to load them up on tape, any save games, but also it allowed you to actually program some stuff on that.
That's
and
right.
I'm no programmer, but I followed some of the basic guide stuff.
And you just type in stuff. Yeah, you open up magazines or something. You type it in,
and it would take 10 minutes to load it up the program just to the point I was, so I could type a few more things and then try it again.
That's been loaded successfully because a lot of times you'd have some glitch in the tape or start or stop.
Well, we
wrong.
found that actually if we had there was something else in the room that if we had it on, it didn't read right. So it was like disrupting it. Yeah, it was really it was great. It was a good.
The early days.
Yeah.
And but then this was picked up by one of the first publishers in the business. They put it in a bigger Ziploc bag.
Okay.
Raised the price from $20 to $35. I actually didn't like their artist, and so I demanded an improvement in art.
Oh, nice.
And that's when we got together with Dennis Lubase. This is the original art for what became the cover of a Calabeth. And this sold about 30,000 copies.
Wow.
My royalties were $5 a piece. If you do that math, 150 grand was not bad for a high school student for after school work.
Wow. Yeah. And so, what did that means you probably made more money than your dad.
He almost tripled.
How did he feel about that?
Well, what was interesting is, everyone in the whole family was like, well, of course, everybody was shocked. And immediately everybody was going like, wow, that's a good idea. You have to do that again. But also everybody had the opinion of, that surely can't continue. meaning
Right. It was luck.
It was a luck, and even if it wasn't luck, even if it was skill. If there's that much money to be made, there's going to be so many other people that immediately dogpile onto it that the opportunity will dilute, and so the rewards will dilute quickly. But therefore they said, well, so now's the time you better jump in. So everybody was go for it.
That's great. So, it's great to have a very supportive family.
But they were all, and as a couple years later I was debating on dropping out of school to go make games, they were all like, well, yeah, you got to do this, but when this runs its course, you can go back to school, finish your degree, and go get a real job.
Right. And
still waiting.
So do you have a real job?
Not yet.
Neither do I. And I like to I keep getting fired from every time I've had a real job.
Yeah.
It hasn't ended well.
Oh, well.
Yeah. I'm like, too many things to fix in this company, here. They get tired of it.
Yeah, kind of think about it. I've only had 3 jobs in my life, other than flipping burgers when I was really young. But it's Origin, Destination, and Portalarium. That's it.
Each time you had a publisher take ownership?
And then what happened? I get pushed out. So I have the same sort of history.
Yeah, so you've been fired 3 times.
Well, twice only, because I'm still here at Portalarium. So,
yeah.
But
well, we're gonna try and avoid that here, right?
Exactly. I hope. That's what I hope.
Yeah.
But yeah. So then, this is actually the Apple II that I wrote. A Calibeth and Ultima 1 and 2.
You still have it.
I wish
I had my ColecoVision.
I don't know if it's not plugged in. Later on, we'll try to plug it in. We'll boot it up for you. But anyway, there's the original art for Ultima 1.
Okay.
Then this first company basically went out of business due to drug habits and quit paying me. So
not your drug habits.
No, not mine, but the others of their principals.
Yes, okay.
So I became a free agent.
Okay.
A lot of publishers were interested in picking up Ultima 2 because it was already a successful line.
Right.
But then I demanded a box and a cloth map. And all the publishers went away, except Sierra. And so Sierra became the publisher of Ultima 2.
Okay.
Oddly, they also quit paying me. Wow. And at that point, this was also when, by the way, Dallas Snell, one of our other principals, was writing games like The Quest and Ring Quest.
Oh, so I didn't know that he had written any games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, so
he's an old timer like me.
That's really good.
And The Quest was pre-Origin. But it was actually my brother Robert who I had called to try to help me collect on these 2 deadbeat companies that quit paying me, and he was unsuccessful in helping me get blood out of those stones. But he came to me after that and went like, Richard, these guys are idiots. If they don't know that the first person they better pay is the person who makes the game,
right,
then they have their priorities wrong as to which bills to pay first.
Yeah.
And because you have to pay the goose that lays the golden egg or you have no more eggs.
Right.
And he said, look, I'll at least promise you that if we go into business together, I'll pay you first. And I was like, that's a better deal than I've had already, so let's start Origin. So this really is what founded Origin.
And then you got to work with your brother.
That's right.
And did that work out well?
It actually really did.
With family?
It did. I mean, in totality, it worked out great. Now, we were both very young. I was maybe 20 or 2 or 3 maybe, and Robert was just a few years older. And so we definitely had the brotherly battles.
Oh, and did that spill over to anybody else?
Not, fortunately not. But there were times, like there's one story that both of us remember that I think illustrates this particularly well. One time we were in his office arguing about something, and the argument became heated. And then as I was going to leave the room, I was going to pick up a pencil off the desk and take it with him, which he claimed was his. And we began to argue over the ownership of a number 2 pencil, which eventually ended up in kind of wrestling, trying to grab it from each other, which eventually the pencil broke. And then we both broke out laughing. After, we were yelling at high voices and then ultimately laughing.
I could see that with like my brothers.
But then when we opened the door, all the employees down the hall were like looking at their doors like going, oh my God, what
these guys are fighting over a pencil.
These guys are fighting over a pencil. Not like that, but like, is the company going to be, is there something really deeply wrong with the company? I mean, they would have valid reason to be quite concerned. But we don't even remember what we were arguing about. I mean, it is literally...
That's funny.
It's some irrelevant issue.
Yeah.
Because we're brothers. But Ultima 3 became our first product.
Okay.
It's also the first time we got fan mail, which means you began to see how people played Ultimas 1, 2, and 3 by min-maxing their way to success. Meaning you saw that people didn't really play as good guys. They would kill all the villagers, steal from all the shops, become powerful, and then go kill Mundane or Minax or Exodus because they were powerful enough
Okay.
But not because they were doing anything good, nor were those 3 bad guys really doing much that was bad. And so I actually went, wow, my bad guys aren't very bad, my players are very bad. I ought to do a little different game. And that's what started Ultima 4.
And this is where I entered in.
Yeah,
that was my first.
Well, and this is a good place to enter. I mean, this is you know,
game.
as I look back, I still, if I had to pick one game that I'm the most proud of, this is, you know, definitely it. This was a true labor of love. This was very hard to make, very soul-searching time to make. Tons of research to make this game. And as I was doing that research and building this game, frankly, no one around me, none of my employees, my brother, family, no one thought I was doing the right thing. People would, as I was doing this game about virtue, that was, you know, monitoring your behavior and forcing you to be a good person,
right,
and not letting you kill all the NPCs like people were doing previously. Everybody in QA, everybody else was going like, Richard, you've gotten all this fan mail where people have told you exactly what they like about your games, and you're now going to block them from doing all those things they just told you that they liked about doing your games.
But as an entrepreneur, that is like how you as an entrepreneur, you buck the system many times.
Yeah.
And you do what you think is right, even though
put it in a box was a good idea. Doing virtues was a good idea. I would say I had the same problem with Ultima 7 when I was doing all the really detailed world crafting. That takes a lot of time to put in that detailed world crafting. And same thing, I was getting feedback from everybody going like, Richard, you are wasting your time making light switches work and toilets flush and all these minor minutia that people are going, that's just not necessary. There's no.
And then people get in there and go, it's incredible how much I can interact with the world.
And they'd go like, yeah, but people would say like, look, you're going to flush the toilet once, and you're going to go, okay, I get it, toilet's flush, and then you're never going to do it again. And I'm going like, yeah, but they do.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then I always try to make sure that there's at least one time where it's special to be doing it, to where you want to pay attention to all those unusual things that happen. But I found over time that when I buck the system like that, or at least when I have some reason to be confident that these unusual changes, I still, I listen to the critique, but if I'm not convinced it's wrong, I try to stand my ground on it, because there are other examples, like with Ultima 8 and to some degree Tabula Rasa, where I did listen to some of that critical feedback, changed, abandoned what I, in my heart of hearts, felt was right, because I had supposedly smart people around me giving me good advice, and I regret it. And so, and it's not to try to think that I'm more right more often than anyone else is, other than I'd rather fail doing the thing I believe in than give in and fail and just.
Oh, you're okay. You can walk by.
Come on through here, Christopher.
Yeah.
Come on. Here's
say hello to everybody.
Chris.
He's drinking the Kool-Aid. He's got a shirt on.
Oh yeah. And he's not only the CTO of the company, but he's actually one of the. But this actually represents. We represent one of the most interesting game design dynamics I think of this team, because I would say we agree 50% of the time, and we completely disagree 50% of the time, and that is the way it should be. And either one of us, that same story I was just telling you about, if you really believe in something, don't just give up. Don't just give it up. And so we both do that. He is happy to go toe to toe with me to the end, and
we kind of represent the two major schools of thought on the game. Whereas Richard's obviously the story guy, and all the
world
very
interaction.
the world interaction, like the kind of the old school Ultima stuff. I'm trying to represent more of the Ultima Online crowd, and those guys are making sure that we kind of have a mix of both in the game. So that's probably where a lot of the conflict comes from. Is just the two different things we're trying to, groups of people we're trying to represent. So.
And we both completely respect each other's position and understand we're in this together, and we're trying to make the absolute best game that we can for the players, and we're both listening we both play the game a lot.
Have you guys broken any pencils?
We haven't broken pencils yet, but we've probably had some pretty heated discussions down through the time. We probably both had to get up out of your chair and steam for a while.
The let's agree to disagree type moments is pretty much where a lot of the conversations have been.
But
over the years, that's
exactly. But it's always what it is.
You remember.
But you need people who know what they want to do, have thought about it carefully, and will stand their ground. And still be friends.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. But this is also where the word avatar comes from, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, okay.
But for those who don't, avatar is now in the common lexicon of games and
Well,
movies and books.
but
This is really where it came from.
That was the first use of. I mean, did you make up that word?
So the word avatar has a historical use, which
Okay.
is it's a Sanskrit word commonly used in Hindu and a few other religions that is commonly used as the human incarnation of a deity on Earth. So when Vishnu, the elephant god, comes to Earth in human form, that human form is his avatar.
Okay.
And the way I came across the word and decided to use it for games is as I was doing analysis I knew I wanted to do a game about virtues, and but I didn't know what virtues to talk about. I mean, I thought, well, do I want to talk about the Ten Commandments? And I'm going, well, no, I don't really want to make a biblical game.
Right.
You know, do I want to talk about the Seven Deadly Sins? And I'm going like, well, that's great for horror movies, but I was really trying to find positive things, and even the opposites of the Seven Deadly Sins didn't feel quite right. And so I thought, well, I need to go do some research. I need to find a philosophy that I like. And I read a lot of Greek and Roman literature to talk about utopian ideals of various kinds. Didn't find anything I liked. Went across to Buddhism, and I actually happen to be personally a fan of a lot of the principles of Buddhism, but it didn't feel quite truthy enough in totality, or gamey enough. I needed something that was the right intersection of truth and gamifiable.
Right.
And I'm going, and I didn't see anything. So I said, well, I'm going to basically have to make it up. And so as I started making it up and was doing even more and more research, I came across this word avatar. And the reason why it resonated with me is I said, look, I want to make a game where the character you're playing is not an alter ego, but you. It has to be literally you, because I'm going to judge you as to whether you are compassionate or honest. It's important you don't believe you're playing Conan the Barbarian. If you're playing your evil wizard alternate persona, then you should be expected to be evil. You should be expected to be morally ambiguous. And the only way I can make sure that you don't get away with saying, I'm being morally ambiguous because it's Conan, is to make sure it's you. And so that's why I grabbed that word avatar, is because it's you are a human from Earth. This is your manifestation in my world. And even if you become a heroic, physically person or gender bend, it's still your soul, your spirit inside that body. And that's also why I started. This is the first. I guess Moongate's really started a little earlier, but this is when I did the gypsy tests in the beginning to do a personality profile as opposed to rolling dice or deciding what your attributes were. I did a detailed character creation that is a question and answer.
Right.
And then found the portal behind your house to take you here to Britannia. And that was all to make sure that this avatar was you.
Interesting.
And by the way, I didn't actually know that I was the first. I didn't think about it other than I liked the word. And we actually trademarked it for a while. EA actually gave it up. But when I saw books like Diamond Age or Snow Crash, and eventually it became popular in other games and things like this, I didn't really even think about who was first until I started looking at the copyright dates on the books and other things, and I realized, wait a minute, those guys are all 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years after me.
Yeah, it's like Xerox and Jeep. They both had the same things. People started making it just ubiquitous.
It becomes ubiquitous.
A Jeep is an SUV, and
Right, and that's actually why EA gave it up. Is they actually said it became so popular so quickly there was really no way to defend it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they just abandoned it. Then Ultima V, Warriors of Destiny, Shadow Lords. Really dig those guys.
I spent months playing that.
Yeah, that's
In fact,
I actually think as cool as I think the concept is for Ultima 4, I think Ultima 5 was a much better told story, because it wasn't, in 4, the good guys were all good, the bad guys were all bad. In Ultima 5, there were people who thought they were good, but were sort of working for the bad guys because they were duped, and there were bad guys who tried to come across as good guys to bring you in, and all the regular, there were good guys that could be bought off, or bad guys you could turn to good. And all that kind of thing, much more rich subtlety that is in there. Then Ultima 7, The False Prophet, is actually probably my other favorite. This is actually my favorite cover of all the Ultimas. This is actually my favorite cover.
That's a great picture.
and the cover, and the cover and the name of the game and the plot all relate to each other the best of any game of the series in my mind. You know, where being titled the False Prophet that you can't see here, you know, showing you heroically standing on the chest of this obviously evil gargoyle. When the game starts, the gargoyles are trying to kill you and invade the Earth. You're set up to basically resist these invaders, these obviously evil invaders. You fight to defeat them, but of course, the closer you get to defeating them, the more you realize that they have families and culture and writing, and you can either attempt to commit, you can't actually finish the genocide, but you can attempt to commit genocide, and which would ultimately, of course, lose. Or if you read their books, you find out that you are the false prophet. You are the false prophet. And so nice turnabout. With Ultima 7, we did some spin-offs. Savage Empire, Martian Dreams, produced by Warren Spector, great games. Oh, that was 6, the false prophet. Ultima 7, the Black Gate, if I get my numbering right. This was another very controversial. We went from my favorite cover to the most controversial cover. Actually, I guess 2 controversial covers in a row. You know, because the Black Gate I thought would look good as a perfectly black monolith. You know, 2001 monolith. But of course, the marketing people just hated it. Hated it. But as much as they hated this, they actually probably hated the Ultima 8 cover even more. In fact, so much so that I don't even have a poster of it. And so, because the original cover for Ultima 8 has a pentagram on it, a big fiery pentagram.
Oh, right. And so everybody thought that this game must assist devil worshiping.
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, that was to some degree exactly what I was trying to jump in the face of. Because I was frankly tired of having, you know, you can write a scary movie or write a scary book, and you put pentagrams on the covers of those, but as soon as you make it a game, somehow it is, you know, the fact that you're participating in some way is leading you to devil worship, and all these things that I frankly don't believe in at all, much less believe that this has any effect on it. And so, so I was sort of doing the stick it to you because I thought the people who would be offended by it aren't going to buy it anyway, and the controversy or buzz or the fact that some people will be annoyed, you know, all press is good press might be a good thing. To be honest, however, it didn't work out as well as I hoped. Not only just the game had some other problems, but even from a marketing standpoint, tons of retailers just wouldn't carry it.
Really?
And so some places required us to put a sleeve on it, like you would for an adult magazine, and then for some places
you got to cover those boobies.
Got to cover that pentagram, or you know, parents will freak out. But yeah. So what's interesting is another interesting lesson of history. Was, you know, I've already mentioned that my 2 favorites so far were Ultima 4 and Ultima 7. Ultima 4 for the virtues, Ultima 7 for the detailed worldcraft.
Okay.
And we actually were in the middle of working on Ultima 7 when EA acquired Origin. And so this finished in its original plan, shall we say. I mean, EA didn't affect it very much.
Okay.
With Ultima 8, something interesting happened, which is, you know, EA is very supportive. You know, EA still loved Origin at this moment and loved us and the team, and we're very excited about this game. But they began to also say, look, you know, we EA have the reason why we could acquire you is because we've actually done better than you in time, and so we think there's things we've learned about the market that we'd like to encourage you to embrace.
Yeah.
And amongst those are things like, you know, we ship products at the perfect time of the year, and we think that the time of year you ship in is considerably more important. The amount of sales you would lose by, for example, shifting from before Christmas to after Christmas is a bigger delta than if you cut whatever you need to cut in order to make it. And not only that, but the amount of time, you know, if you wait too long between releases, people lose interest and go to other game lines.
This causes major crunches.
Yes, not only does it cause major crunches, but it also causes you to make decisions about what you might cut out of a game, what you might be willing to cut. And Ultima 8, we ended up cutting, you know, because we're still building our own engines at this point. So about half the time of the development is just building the engine.
Okay. And
the second half is putting in the content. So if you cut off 25% of the time, you've cut out half the content. Make sense?
Because you can't cut out half the engine.
Right. In fact, you're probably past that by the time you learn that you ought to be cutting. By the time you start cutting, you're already past the engine, so there's nothing to be saved. And so we probably cut out 50% of the story and the map area and refinement on certain features and other things in order to get Ultima 8 out on schedule. Well, the result of that is that the game was buggy, the game didn't feel right, the map didn't really correlate with the gameplay at all, and while there's some foundational concepts in Ultima 8 that I'm still very proud of and think that we're really, I think, for example, it was sort of had a lot of Diablo before Diablo. It never got seen for that. It never, was never really received well because of that rough launch.
What you're saying here, and having played starting at Ultima 4, exactly what you're describing. I didn't know it as a player, but I recognize what you're saying, that I was part of that experience.
Right.
And I do remember thinking that it wasn't as good as some of the previous stuff.
Right. And what's also important, but the reason I was very careful the way I describe it too, is I'm trying not to blame EA. It wasn't that EA ever sat down and said, you must do this. It really was people, smart people, with good data, good evidence to show, here's why we've concluded this information. We would like you to embrace it. And I embraced it. It was a choice.
Right.
And it was a heavily layered on choice, but it would be feasible to deny that, if you know what I mean. And in fact, we did learn to deny it. And so that's how we fixed it going forward.
Right.
And so if you look at Ultima 9 and Ultima Online, we did these our way.
Yeah.
And while Ultima 9, coming on the heels of Ultima 8, had some significant resistance from EA, and I was like, screw you, we're making it. So it didn't really have the corporate support.
Right.
Ultima Online actually has an even probably more interesting history, which is that when it was really Star and myself and others, but Star and I primarily, who we had been looking for years at doing a multiplayer Multima, we used to call it. And we would talk with people like Kesmai or Genie or other folks who were already doing graphical MUDs and other games about maybe collaborating and doing a multiplayer Ultima, because we thought it'd be a good property. It's a great, multiplayer is a place we thought it ought to be. But in the dial-up era where people were paying by the minute or hour, it was really just too expensive to really seriously consider developing a AAA product for it.
Right.
But as soon as it was obvious that the internet was coming, we knew now was the time. And so Star and I went, detailed design documents in hand, went to EA, showed them what we wanted to do. Now, the way EA worked, and I believe still probably still does, is that you would bring in not only your design document, but your technical plan, like how many people you need, so therefore how much is it going to cost, and you would give that to the marketing and sales department, and they would do sales projections. And then you would take those projections and the plan into an executive meeting where they would debate which products to greenlight and which ones to stop. And based upon that, they would...
Hi, Matthew.
I'm talking to you. Hey, how you doing?
Based upon that, they would, if you look at how sales and marketing would work, they would take the plan and they go, okay, we liked, Lord British's Ultima, those are good things. What comparables exist out in the world to give us a reason to expect how much this would sell? And the only things they could look at were the Genie and other dial-up
There was nothing really to compare it to.
There was nothing, yeah, and there was no way for those to have very many sales. And so like the biggest number of sales that any previous MMO-like kind of MUD had was something on the order of 15,000 sales. And they said, well, okay, well this is Lord British and it's Ultima, so maybe we'll give it twice what the best-selling thing ever was, and it would be 30,000 sales. The same as a Calabeth back in the Ziploc bag days. And they said, well, if you do that math, that doesn't anywhere come even close to pay for the development of a product. So thank you, but we're not interested in your product. And we tried to argue with him like, you've got this completely wrong, but to no avail. So we droopily went home. 6 months later, there's another one of these greenlight meetings. We come pitch it again. We say, look, the internet is now here. The internet has begun. We're starting to get behind the curve. We need to start this now. And they came back the second time and said no. 12 months later from the first time, we go back again. So it's now we're a year behind schedule, so to speak, from our perspective. We pitch it a third time, and for a third time, we're told no. And at that point, me and Star just say, you guys are so wrong about this. We are not leaving the room. We said, look, we're going to revolt. We're going to have a sit-in. We're going to stay here in this room until you give us the privilege, the rights, to spend at least $250,000 to provide you a prototype, so you can see the power of what this is we're talking about. And Larry Probst very begrudgingly scribbled me out a piece of paper that said, "Fine, get out of the room. Fine, you mean-spirited guys," and sent us packing. And thus began Ultima Online as sort of the bastard stepchild product that no one wanted. We often literally office in hallways like this while other offices were being rebuilt. Everyone else got the best offices physically. Everyone else, if there was a new employee that Wing Commander or some other product wanted, they got those resources first. We had to scrape and scramble for the people and the furniture and the space to do any work. But then when we got the prototype done, we had spent our $250,000, and this was before the internet was fast enough to download a client.
Okay,
and so we needed to be able to send people discs, and that would cost us money.
Right.
And so we put up one of EA's first ever websites, one of the first websites around, that basically said, "Hey, we're the Ultima guys. If you want to beta test this for us, please send us $5 for the privilege of being a beta tester."
Right.
And 50,000 people
I was one of those 50.
signed up within like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And EA went, "Oh, we get it." And suddenly, that bastard stepchild product became the most important thing happening in EA worldwide. And so we went from being completely underfunded and underhelped to plentifully funded and overhelped. And then we suddenly had the parade of executives who were all here to help us do our job better.
Right.
And as we had, which brings a whole different kind of problem.
Right, right.
But Ultima Online eventually became the first, in fact, became the best-selling PC game in Origin in EA history.
Wow.
On the end of that, we actually thought we should go do Wing Commander Online, take our other big property and go do another online game. The Wing Commander team wanted to do it. We wanted to do it. We built the team. EA said no. That team left and made Star Wars Galaxies for Sony.
Oh, yeah, and that wasn't a good title at all.
Yeah, exactly. And it could have easily been Wing Commander. I mean, it literally was. It It could have, would have, should have been Wing Commander. Then, so ultimately, we departed. We split off and made something called Destination Games, which existed for a whopping 2 weeks.
Oh.
That we, as soon as we announced the existence of this company, we were contacted by this Korean firm, NCSoft,
Right.
who had been inspired by Ultima Online to make Lineage,
Which
was
did
the
really well.
biggest online game on Earth. It was 10 or 100 times bigger than...
Nobody here in the States and Western knows that.
Yeah, nobody knew, but it was gigantic. And so they called us and said, "Look, you inspired us to do this in the first place. We'd love some help to understand the West and pick up some Western games and developers, etc." We, of course, split off. We had no funds to go build stuff, so we happily joined NCSoft. With NCSoft, we helped build and acquire Cryptic Studios, which did City of Heroes. With the same thing with ArenaNet and Guild Wars. We did our own game, of course, Tabula Rasa. And then you see a gap. And we started all getting back together again here with Portalarium. We actually did a very small game called the Garage Sale. That was sort of our excuse to get back together to try to do something small to get some funding and to get ourselves on get our feet underneath us. But we always knew that what we were really going to be making was a game back in our original form, and that brings us over to Shroud of the Avatar. There's the cluttered corner because it's all still in production. But back with Dennis Loubet again as creating our cover art. I like this. This to me is sort of an homage to Ultima VI: The False Prophet. This image to me means a lot about what the story is that we have still not told anyone. When you get to the finale of the story or begin to understand how the main story wraps up, this will have more meaning to you.
We'll like, oh, we get it.
That's my hope.
Yeah,
that's my hope. But that's what brings us all together. So that's anyway. There's the history tour, and otherwise, there's 30 of us here in the building that you can go say hi to all of them, and we've got artists at either end, programmers in the middle, QA, customer service, even more in the middle.
Yeah.
Come around, make yourself at home, and come say hi.
Well, thank you for the tour, and I think that a lot of people that are really into Ultima will really enjoy this little tour you've given us.
Yeah, I hope so. And and even though Shroud of the Avatar obviously is not Ultima, EA owns the word Ultima, and we're very careful not to be a derivative work in any way. So there's no characters or places that continue across. But as you will remember, in the early Ultimas, they were all in different physical spaces. And so Shroud of the Avatar is a new physical space, New Britannia. And but Lord British is still there. All the same design principles that I've evolved down through the years are still a part of it. And we're very careful to not violate any of the foundational fiction that I've set forth in my worlds historically.
Well, what I'll say is
so,
that it's definitely the spiritual successor.
Spiritual successor.
And
exactly.
that it's not Ultima when you get into it, but you feel
You'll
like
feel it.
you're in Ultima.
Exactly.
Yep, that's exactly how I feel about it.
Right. Me
So,
too. That's what we hope.
Yep. And I'll see you in game, right? Oh,
Exactly.
and send Lord British here a friend request in game.
Absolutely.
Because he loves friends.
I do.
And he will hang out with you.
That's true. And you'll see if we exchange friend requests, you'll actually see when I log in. And so you'll know that I'm there, and you can send me a private message on the spot. And as you and others know, I will. Somebody sends me a friend request. If I'm usually just in to explore and see what people are up to. So send me a hello when I'm on an adventure, and I'll come jump in and play with you.
I hear about you like just randomly spinning the wheel on your friends list and then teleport to this person.
That's true.
And he'll just appear there. And then the player will have a meltdown.
Yeah, well, in fact, I have a funny story about that. One of our players goes by Violation, and I did not know, but his family plays, including his 8-year-old daughter. But he has told his 8-year-old daughter, when you're in an online game, you cannot talk to strangers. And so I saw a Violation, but with a name that I didn't recognize, and so I teleported to this person. But this person kept running away from me, and I kept wondering, is this like a bot or something that is, because they're not responding to anything I say, they're clearly ignoring me, they're harvesting stuff, but I'm going like, what is this going on? And then I got separately an email from Violation saying, hey, by the way, you just completely freaked out my 8-year-old daughter because she's like, I don't know who this person is that's chasing me or following me around and trying to talk to me. But you've given me very clear guidance, don't talk to strangers.
Yes.
And he had to go back and say, it's okay, you can talk to Lord British.
Yeah. As well as my kids. They would probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. See you in game.